Morning, thanks for tuning in this morning. We're harvesting a little bit of honey because it's still the springtime here and it's exciting to see all the different flavours that are coming in. We built this pyramid from harvesting honey from just these two hives, and to me it's just so magic to see all the different colours and flavours that can come out of just two hives. Here you've got the Goya, which is like this rainforest species here, which has this, it's like a quince kind of flavour. It's an incredible flavour. And then you've got these deeper, darker tones come out of the Banksias and things in the heathland over winter. And it's just extraordinary to see. We've been getting, whoa, hang on, there's some more honey overflowing just here. There you go. Yum. We've been getting quite a few questions about how we stack this up, because it's actually, we had to do a little bit of a balancing act here. When you stack the jars, they tend to cave in a little bit in the center. If you imagine inside is actually a hollow triangle. So what I did is I got some acrylic here and I laser cut just this little shape to go around the edge and support the next jar layer. And it worked really well. If you've missed the time lapse, have a look. We'll put it in the link below and you can see us harvesting that honey. Better stay onto it here. Yum. You can see us harvesting that honey live and watch the pyramid being built. But to me, it's just magic to see just how much honey comes out of a hive. And in this case, two flow supers here and here is what we use to build all of these jars. If you've got questions, put it in the comments below. We'll get to answering those. There is a special on at the moment, which we're getting a lot of questions about, so chime in. We're here to answer any questions to help you get started in beekeeping. And if you've also got answers to other people's questions, chime in. It's fantastic to see all around the world people helping each other to get started in the amazing pursuit of beekeeping. Wow, this honey's just pouring out, look at it go. Such beautiful honey too. So, any questions coming in, Trace?
Yes, Seeds. Everyone loving the pyramid and the way you're stacking up the different colours honey there. Just wondering, with the Black and Yellow Friday, is it all around the world? Can people log in and get it off all the sites?
It is actually. We ship to most places in the world, and we've set up a shipping system so that if you're in Europe, it'll come out of our Europe warehouse. If you're in North America, it'll come out of our North American warehouse, and so on. So it's actually quite quick to get your flow hive in most places in the world. Obviously we can't get to everywhere, but we really do try.
Fantastic. And so you were saying that we've got the Flow Hive 2 Plus, and it's a hive that we often don't have sale. What's the difference between the 2 Plus, the 2 and the Classic?
Okay, so this is our latest and greatest hive with all the bells and whistles, and the Classic is actually the one we started with in 2015, and we're still making it today because people still want that hive also. What we did is we came along and took the feedback from our amazing global audience, and we built in some things to solve more problems for our beekeepers. So what the Flow Hive 2 Plus has here is, we'll start from the bottom, we've got these adjustable feet, which enables you to adjust the legs on each corner of the hive, which takes away that annoying bit where you're trying to find a level piece of ground and you keep chipping it away and re-leveling it, because you can just adjust this now to suit the terrain. Nice to put it on a bit of a brick in the garden because the soil's often soft and it will sink. Then we have these ant caps here, which you can use if ants are annoying you and crawling up onto the hive and nesting behind the windows and things. So what you can use them for is adding a little cooking oil in there, and it will create an ant barrier. Now the stand we've integrated into the baseboard now. So if you order it with the stand, you get these nice adjustable legs, solid cast aluminium there, and then that screws on the inside of the base here. And this base we built to make it easier for the beekeeper with a pest management tray. So in here you can actually see that there's a tray which you can use to do things like collect hive beetles. You can also use it for counting varroa mites if you've got varroa in your area, and it's just a useful tray for managing some pests in beekeeping. And then if we go up further, we've got our little shelf brackets which we clip on, and then we reuse the cover here to make this nice shelf. And that was a nice add-on that really helped people, because in the beginning people were stacking, you know, bricks and blocks and bricks and blocks to get up to here. So we thought, oh, let's make it a beautiful little shelf, and it's adjustable because you can clip it on to any of these screws. So if you've got a really tall jar, you can clip it on right down here, and you can get a full 2-litre jar that is the whole frame worth of honey. Look at that, beautiful. And also, if we come up higher in the hive, you've got extra windows. More windows really help. That's the frame we're actually harvesting right now. And you can see the bees are going, oh, something's changed here. The honey's gone from beneath their feet, and now they're going to start the work. You can see some even chewing away here, already starting the work of taking the capping off, and they'll rebuild those cells, cover them all in wax, and start the whole process of storing nectar and creating honey again. Then you come up higher, and we've also got these roof locks here, which are just made for the high wind area. We have found that when the wind reaches, because we had our hives right on the escarpment, when you'd get a cyclonic wind coming up the slope reaching 70 kilometres an hour, it would actually blow the classic roofs off. So we made this a bit deeper, and we put the hive locks in place with these brass details, and we've also changed the knobs out for little nice brass ones that'll last forever.
Fantastic seeds. And so the other thing is that we've got Kevin asking about the difference in the timber. If you buy the Araucaria or the cedar, what's best to protect it from the weather?
So if you come up the row here, you'll see that we have the Araucaria one. Now it's best just to use an outdoor house paint if you can, and by all means get creative with your family and put an artwork on it. That's a fun thing to do. This is a great one by Bella, who some of you may have had contact with. She's one of our amazing customer support people here in the hive, and she's painted this, and doesn't it look amazing? So Araucaria, you do want to paint, you can just paint it white or you can paint it blue. The bees don't care, and what that'll do is give you a long-lasting finish. If you go to just oil the Araucaria, then what you find is mildew will creep in and it won't look so good in 6-12 months time down the track. So we really do recommend an outdoor house paint. If you've got the cedar, then you can go ahead and use the decking coats. Those products you put on your deck are made to keep wood looking like wood outdoors for as long as possible. So that's where we've ended up after all of these years. We're using the decking finishes, and it works quite nicely. You can just get those at your hardware store, and you can make cedar look like this for a long time. Now, keeping wood outdoors, you're always fighting nature a little bit, so it's not completely free from TLC to keep it looking like this for the long term.
Great, Sadie. Yeah, Earth's on Insta's just tuning in and saying as well, how much attention do you need to maintain the wood year after year, and do you need to recoat it, and can you do it with the bees in it?
Yes, you can. We do find you can touch up your hive with the bees in it. New to beekeeping, look after yourself, wear a good bee suit, wear your gloves, be sensible, but early in the morning is a good time because a lot of the bees are inside, so you can get around the entrance side and touch it up if you need to in that area. And I've found that works quite nicely, but obviously look after yourself, and if you find it's you know, a little bit hard to coat around the entrance, then you might just leave that area or get some help from somebody who's comfortable right in the flight path of the bees.
Great. Seeds, we're going across Facebook, Insta and YouTube, and a few people are tuning in from probably all around the world and asking prices about the bundle. But I guess it's going to be easier for them maybe to check their websites than, because they're all different prices depending on where you are in the world.
Oh, can you put a link in the
Definitely.
in below?
Yeah, we'll put a link in, and there's a couple of bundles too, Seeds, and one of them is the Deluxe Black Friday bundle, and wondering what is the caddy and what's in the caddy?
The caddy here is our nifty little toolbox. We found that we're always running around looking for where's this bit, where's that bit, and that beekeepers were wanting a place to put everything, but also wanting things like a bee brush to help with their beekeeping. So what we did is we put it all together in a nice little box, and even made a point here where you can put your smoker on the front there, which is super handy because you can just grab the whole kit, whether you're going out to harvest or you're going out to do an inspection. You can just pick up your box and walk out. And this tool belt here is nice. It comes with your hive brush, your logbook, which is useful. We've custom made the logbook for flow hive beekeeping, so you can fill it out and keep track of things, whether you're doing a brood inspection or harvesting. And then you've got this little L-wrench tool, which is super handy, and some honey drizzlers, which I actually find the most use for them is stirring up cocktails. If you've got a nice friendly hive nearby, one thing we love to do is put honey straight from the hive into our drink, and the honey drizzler is great for just stirring that up. The hive tool has been upgraded, and that's our new flow hive tool. Super good one for doing your brood inspections. And then you just hold the queen while you're doing something in the hive. You can clip her in there, and that way she won't get away while you're working on some things in your brood inspection. So lots of fun things in there, and this tool belt actually comes off and can clip onto your belt if you want to do the tradie beekeeping style with.
Fantastic. Seeds, Wild and Wonder Films on Insta is asking what filters the honey just while you're jarring it.
Isn't that cool? It just comes out perfectly clear into the jar. No filtration, hasn't touched any machinery. It's only gravity getting it out of the hive, and it comes out perfectly clear, ready for the table. Very occasionally you get a tiny bit of wax floating, but it doesn't really matter. I never filter the honey, which is so different from when I was harvesting honey conventionally and having the processing line with the spinner and everything. There was a lot of filtration needed at the end because there's a whole lot of wax and bee bits. In fact, you had to settle it for 24 hours, then you have to sieve it and so on, and you eventually get to a clear product. And it's amazing because beekeepers go to great lengths to get a clear product like that, right? Nice, clear, because if you're entering it in a competition, it needs to be clear like that. Flow hive beekeepers come along and they fill it up direct from the hive, enter it into the competition, and often win with no filtration whatsoever. So that was a real win in just another unexpected benefit, I guess, of harvesting from the flow hive. One thing I forgot to mention about this spinner thing, because we've been getting a few questions about how we did this. If you missed the time lapse, we'll put it in the link below as well. But what we did is we harvested honey with a crew of us and put a camera filming us, and then we sped that up and you get to see us racing back. We've got it on to show you, I guess, just to show you the magnitude of honey that can come out of two hives, which I think is just incredible. So this is just two supers. You could actually have two supers on one hive and get this amount of honey from a single hive by harvesting all of those frames. So hats off to the Apis mellifera, the European honeybee that humans have dragged all around the world wherever they go. Incredible pollinators. They can visit 50 million flowers in a day, and they just create ridiculous amounts of honey. They're just such an extraordinary species, and a really important one for us to look after, because now, of course, they're all tangled up with our food chain. So we want to make sure there's enough beekeepers in the world to look after enough bees to get our pollination done.
Great. Liam's tuning in from Cape York, their traditional land up there, and just wondering, they've heard that they have the native bees that live in the area, but the problem is that the trees are about 10 to 15 feet, and he was just wondering how you would get them.
Okay, native bees. Here in Australia we actually have the oldest living culture of traditional honey harvesters, harvesting honey from what's called the sugar bag bee, or Tetragonula carbonaria it's been named. And it's a little black fly looking bee, no stinger, which is nice, but when you pull the hives apart they do try and get in your ears and up your nose and in your eyes, so it's still worth wearing a veil. And what they still do traditionally, and has been done for many thousands of years, is they'll get one of the little bees and they'll tie a hair to it, or a little feather, to find it, as you've said, in honey, and by pulling the hive apart. Now, as to how you get up to height, well, I think you're going to need some climbing skills there, or a big ladder, to harvest honey in that traditional way from the sugar bag bee.
Great, amazing. I'd love to see footage of that. Seeds, Hunter Hughes is asking, does the caddy come with all the tools? Saying that, look, getting some great feedback on the tools. I'm not on the caddy rather. Just not sure what tools he's talking about. I think.
Okay, so it does come with all of these necessary beekeeping things, which is your J-Hive tool, super important one for doing your brood inspections. That's how you lift your frames out, whether they be flow frames or brood frames. And it also comes with a little L-wrench tool. If you might have lost that when you put your hive together, so there's another one of them to just adjust your screws and hook on your shelves and so on. It also comes with the bee brush, which is, this is a nice quality brush we've been made. We actually weirdly spent years trying to get to a really good one, so happy with this one now. And that's our bee brush. If you don't have a bee brush, then foliage works. And then your logbook here, which is it's purpose made for flow hive beekeeping, with brood inspections on one side, harvesting on the other. It doesn't come with these garden tools that happen to be in here, but they're super fun as well. That's our favourite here. It's called the Widger. Solid tools, you won't break them. The ones you buy down at the hardware store often break pretty quickly, so.
I didn't even know what a widger was, and now it's probably my favourite garden tool. And Angela's asking, will we be having a sale? Well, yes, Angela, we've got the black and yellow sale that's on at the moment. So the link's in the website on this feed, so you can tune in and have a look at that as well. Pamela's asking, wondering how much attention you need to give to a hive. Just wondering, can they leave it on their property that they only visit monthly?
Yes, you can. Bees are this wonderful thing where, unlike other producing animals, whether you've got chickens or whatever, you don't need to be there every day to put them away. They fly back into the hive themselves. You're not really fencing them in, there's no fencing to do. They come and go as they please to the hive, and all you're doing is providing them this amazing home, looking after them. And I guess it's a bit like rent, isn't it? Where quite often they'll store more honey than they need, and we can have some too. Isn't set and forget, but if you're there every month, you'll be able to do your brood inspections, and you won't have to do them every month, but in some parts of the season, every month is good. Brood inspections they do on their hives. It does vary around the world, depending on you know, whether you've got varroa mites in your area, in order to keep your hive happy and healthy.
Great. Now, a couple of questions coming in. Debbie's asking, will we ever do a medium flow box? And Thomas is asking, will we build a horizontal hive for sale?
By all means, chime in, let us know. It's always good to know what you're wanting out there and how we can be of help to support all the things you need in beekeeping.
Great. Kimbo's saying, how long until the bees start? Bees slowly move up as the bottom becomes too full.
Yes, that's if they're happy and healthy, they'll be filling that up, and if they've got some nectar and pollen around, they'll be breeding up, building comb, breeding up, building comb, and as soon as they're full here and they've got activity on every frame, they've drawn their wax into every frame, that's when we recommend putting the top box on. As to how long it takes for them to fill it up, it really does vary, and the two major players into how fast they will do it are the nectar flow, which is how many flowers producing nectar, and how strong your colony is. If you look in the window of the hive and there's a lot of bees in there, and that coincides with a good nectar flow, then it's quite fast. In fact, in the springtime here, we can harvest the frames and have it fill up again in a week, which is very exciting. But equally, you get other times of year, or you get a dud season where there was drought, or perhaps there was too much rain, and you may not get a honey harvest at all that season. So it does really vary, but I would say you want to allow several months before they've filled up your box. Some areas have long cold winters where there'll be 6 months of your hive just with snow build up and so on, so it really varies where you are in the world as well.
Right, well Harry's tuning in from Brisbane and just wondering, would they need to leave honey in the super if there's a possibility of a drought in the summertime?
Where was the location again?
Brisbane,
Brisbane,
just up the road, yeah.
I doubt it in Brisbane. In Brisbane summertime, you're always going to get something flowering, even if there's a drought. So you're unlikely to need to, I guess, stock honey for a long winter, because you also get flowering things in the wintertime. Having said that, the flow hive allows you to really tune in and go, okay, they're looking a bit empty, maybe I won't harvest, I'll wait till they're filling up. And you can just fill your honey jars as the frames fill. So if you see a couple of frames here that are ready to harvest and they've put their wax capping on, you can just go ahead and harvest maybe one of those frames if you're unsure, or you can harvest half of a frame if you're unsure. So it's quite versatile like that. And actually these bees be getting a little bit hungry, and you notice this checker pattern that's happening where it was full and capped and the next one's completely empty. That shows that there's not a flow on, meaning there's not an abundance of nectar enough for them to fill up. So you might decide, well, I won't harvest all their honey right now. So looking in the windows can give you a gauge of how much and whether to leave for the bees, but Brisbane area is quite plentiful, and you'll find most of the year round you'll be able to harvest a frame or two when it's there.
Right, Trent's in Ipswich in Queensland, and just wondering, is there any maintenance on to the frames after you've harvested, or is it as easy as harvest the honey, reset the frame, and the bees will do it all themselves?
But generally is actually the latter, where if you're leaving your frames in the hive, you'll find that the bees will look after it. Now, having said that, after about 5 years of use and all of those seasons and all of that wax build up, because the bees do coat all the flow frame parts in wax, then we're finding that people like to give them a good clean out. And the best thing for that we've found is a pressure washer. So 5 years in, you might want to pull your frames, give them a good blast with a pressure washer. Even better, feed your pressure washer some hot water from your hot water service, and that will really strip it back and you can go again. The only other little bit of maintenance you do when they're in the hive is just making sure that this leak pack point is clear. If you have a look down here, you can see there's this little gap that looks like we messed up our design work here when we were inventing the flow hive, but it's actually on purpose. This yellow bit here and the clear bit have a gap between, and you might even be able to see, give us a thumbs up if you can see those little tongues licking there, and they're actually licking honey that's seeping through, because we've harvested this frame, there's still a little bit dripping through. And what bees will do is they'll block up that little point, and you'll sometimes get honey building up in here, but it's as simple as unblocking it and then it goes again. And what we did is we also made the harvesting tube automatically unblock it, and we thought that would be set and forget, so you wouldn't have to unblock it, but bees will be bees and they'll block it up in between your harvests as well. And sometimes you'll see, like here actually, on this frame, just a little bit of honey build up. So that's one spot you can maintain. And also sometimes if there's been honey left in there and it's gone a bit manky, you'll just use a cloth to clean that out by putting it on your flow key here, wrapping a nice thin wet cloth around it and just giving it a little clean out before you harvest. I rarely do that, but it's something you may need to do at some stage. If you're having any trouble with your flow frames, do get in contact. We've built them to be long lasting. We do have frames that are now in our hives for 8 years because we've only had our flow frames in for 8 years. Actually, even before we launched, we had some frames in the hives, and but that's the time span that we know they can last. But if you're having any issues, then let us know and we'll look after you.
Great. Cedar, is it Winter Ted is tuning in from New York and the New Jersey area? Just wondering, is there any or accessories for the winter months that we're going to be bringing out, like covers, insulation, anything like that?
So, covers for your hive over winter is a very debated topic. Some beekeepers go, actually, it's best to leave it so it gets cool on the inside. You get condensation on the inside. The bees then bunker down into a hibernation mode and they breed themselves fat bees to last that long winter. And some say keeping the hive too warm means your hive might not be able to last as long. They do use condensation as a water source during that winter time as well. So it's a debated topic whether you do covers, but one place that isn't argued is under the roof here. You should put some insulation if you're in a cold, snowy area, and that way you'll limit condensation on the underside of this. You don't want condensation dripping off your inner cover onto your bees. That's not good. So you can just put an old pillow in there or some styrofoam that you've got or whatever, just to insulate this top cover. And one nice thing about the flow hive is there is this space here already to put that insulation in, and it's a case of just putting that in. But one thing people do request in the colder climates is these entrance reducers. So we do have them available for you. And they come with our Flow Hive 2 Plus, but if you've got a different model, we've made this to actually suit all our models. There's 2 sizes, but it'll suit all our models with the various different holes and attachment points here. And that's handy in really cold climates, or perhaps in a place where you've got the wasps, the yellow jackets. You might want to reduce the entrance and give your bees a easier entrance to defend because it's smaller. And you can turn it upside down for a closure as well, which is handy if you're moving a hive. Your boxes do have to be in line for that, but if you've got your boxes nicely in line, that'll work as a closure as well.
Nice. Now, me, Vale Gooey, coming in on Insta, this is a question that I get asked a bit actually on the phones as well, that people we say that it's honey on tap and things like that. But also, do you think it misleads people in the knowledge that you also actually have to look after your bees, and what does Flow sort of offer to help people and support for that kind of education about the bees?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one that started very early on, because when my father and I invented the flow frames, we thought that we were inventing something for existing beekeepers. And what we didn't realise is that we'd be inspiring a new wave of beekeepers, and actually half of our 100 and something thousand flow hive beekeepers in the world are brand new to beekeeping. So as soon as we realised that, we started with the education. We started making content to help people get started in beekeeping. And we've continued to do that, like standing here and speaking for an hour every week to answer questions. And we've also now developed what's called the beekeeper.org, which is a handhold from square one all the way through to even a deep scientific knowledge in beekeeping. It's an online course. Experts from all over the world have contributed to it, and it's also an amazing fundraiser. So I think it doesn't matter whether you've got a flow hive or a conventional hive, you still need to look after your bees. You still get some people that don't, and you still get a lot of people that do. And I think what we want to be doing, and what we are doing, is providing a lot of education for beekeepers around the world, whether they be Langstroth beekeepers or flow hive beekeepers. So I'm actually proud that we have, and it would be fair to say that we've put out the most education out of any beekeeping company in the world.
Yeah, thanks, Cedar. And J&J from Jason, actually from Tasmania, just wondering through the winter here, would they need to put on another brood box, or could they just feed the bees with sugar water?
So, if you're preparing your bees for a winter, then if there's no honey stores in the hive or very little, and you know you've got a long winter ahead, then feeding the bees what's called a thick syrup. So it's 2 sugar to 1 water, cook it up, let it cool, make some kind of feeder. An easy one is you put it in a Ziploc bag, you put it under the roof, you take the cap out, you put some pinholes in it. The bees will get up there and be able to lick that and store it in your frames, so they've got some stores for that long winter ahead. Now, here in our area, we're in a subtropical region, the bees generally have something we never need to feed them. But there are a lot of places in the world where they do need feeding, and the time to feed them is ideally prior to a long time without forage, so prior to a winter. And that way they've got stores, you don't need to get in there and open their hive in the cold and so on. And if, but as you say, adding another box early on is another way. If they're naturally bringing in a lot of honey, then it is common in those colder areas to add another brood box. So another one of these, bees are doing their thing in there, just making their wax comb on the natural wooden frames, and that just gives them a whole lot more storage room for that long winter.
Nice.
Let us know if you can hear us okay. We've got some mowing going over the fence.
Well, maybe that leads us into Lee's question, was do the bees make much noise around the hive? Unlike the mower.
No, they don't. I haven't heard anyone complain about the bees making too much noise. Oh, that's not true. We had a beekeeper who had a honey trailer he had built. He's now passed on, unfortunately, but he built a trailer with 40 beehives in it, and his idea was he would travel from down south of Australia right up to the tip of Australia. And he was a fascinating, wonderful guy, and his idea was he would sleep in the middle between 40 beehives in a trailer. And he abandoned that after a little bit because he said it was just too noisy in there. But as far as noise from beehives, you can't really hear much noise from them unless you put your ear quite close to them. That noise is a brush cutter, not a beehive. It's a weed whacker.
Yeah, it's not our bees having a party. Cedar, can you harvest bee pollen or royal jelly from the flow hive?
So from any beehive you can. Now, bee pollen requires an additional bit. So bee pollen is a brush basically across the entrance, and it brushes pollen off their legs on the way in. It's not something I'm a fan of actually, because the bees need that pollen. It's their protein source. They need it to feed to they need it to turn into bee bread so they can feed it to the young larvae and increase their population. So it's not something we see often or particularly recommend, but by all means muck around and see if you can harvest some bee pollen with a little bee brush at the entrance. What was the other one?
Bee pollen and royal jelly.
Royal jelly. So I've never harvested royal jelly actually from a hive, but if you do want to harvest royal jelly, and you'll need to do a bit of research on that one, but chime in if you have been harvesting royal jelly from your hive.
Great. Pamela's asking, she's heard that EMFs, the electric and magnetic fields, can really annoy bees, that they're quite sensitive to it. Just wondering if you've ever thought about this, or do we have anything to protect that in our beehives?
Yeah, so I do know a beekeeper who swears that when he's got his Bluetooth earpods in, they'll go for his head more. But that's a bit anecdotal evidence. Now, in terms of detrimental effects to a hive from EMF, I think if you look in a city, bees actually do really well in the city. They produce great honey. There's often a longer season from everything people plant in the area, and what you end up with is an amazing climate for bees, and people keep them on their rooftops and so on. So I think considering there's probably several thousand times more EMF in a city than there is here, and the bees are doing well in the city, to present.
Fantastic. So it's a couple of people saying we've got 2 bundles going. We've got the Deluxe one and we have the Black Friday one. Just wondering, is that the same as the starter bundle? It's with the smoker and the suit, but it's just with the 2+.
Well, you might have to answer that one for me, Chase.
That's I thought you might. Yeah, look, it does come with a $150 e-voucher as well. I think you're saving $300, $350 depending on where you are. The e-voucher is fantastic. This offer is going to end on November the 28th, unless we sell all these out. And I think your e-voucher will be emailed to you in early December. And you can use it to buy, like Cedar was showing, the garden tools, the books, or all the other beautiful products that we have on our website as well. And there's also the beekeeping lessons, which is the beekeeper.org, which Cedar was talking about before, which 50% of profits go to bee-friendly projects. So it's a pretty good sale.
So if you've got a few more questions, we've got time for a couple more. Trace will read those out. And there's a bit of a buzz around this launch, actually, excuse the pun, but legitimately the bundles we've got are selling quite quickly, so I don't like to be salesy like that and say get in now, but actually they probably will sell out, so I just wanted to let you know that. And I was just looking, we had a jumping ant on the honey jars here, which is one of our ants we have locally. And it gives you a good old sting, actually. Worse than a bee. Where'd it go? Oh, it jumped off. I'm just going to show you what that looked like.
It's gone. Just want to shout out to Hassan's just joined us from Guinea in West Africa and saying that they're a beekeeper and love this kind of beehive for Africa.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
That's great. It's amazing to have these hives all over the world and hear the stories and the footage coming in, because Apis mellifera, the European honeybee, has been taken everywhere in the world, pretty much, except Antarctica. We can, there it is, the jumping ant. So these ants have a really nasty sting. So as long as you don't step on it or stir them up by banging too much, they won't sting you. But we get stung all the time at home.
Yeah. Hey, Ramina's joined us from, where are they? Somewhere in Australia, I think. They have the hybrid hive, doing really well. The brood box is fantastic. But it's been a couple of months, and just wondering, they haven't really started putting much in the top box yet. Do they just need to be patient?
Yes, patience is probably the best ingredients on that one, but otherwise, you're waiting for lots of bees when you open the window. So if you're opening the window and you're not seeing many bees in the hive, then you might need to wait a bit longer till you've got a lot of bees, and then that coincides with a good nectar flow. Then it will happen quite quickly. However, if you're getting a bit impatient, you can muck around a little bit and increase them starting to work on the frame by getting your hive tool, which is this one. Now, if they are ready for the top box, then they probably would have built some wax on top of your wooden frames down here. Just scrape that off and you can mash it into the flow frame surface, put that frame on the window. You can enjoy watching them recycle that wax in that area and coat that part in wax. Having said that, they probably won't store it with honey until they've got lots of bees and lots of nectar around. So, as you said, patience is the one.
Nice. Liam's tuned in again, who tuned in from his traditional lands up at Cape York. Just the question was, he'd bought a whole lot of flower, herbs and some tree seeds, but realised they have the desert flower seeds, and just wondering, will it affect the bees and the honey?
Well, anything that they're foraging on will change the flavour. So here you've got the Goya, or wild quince it gets called, and that's a prolific species down through the subtropical rainforest, and it's very floral in nature. It really, it's a floral burst in your mouth. It's incredible. And you've got these deeper, darker tones which are more malty, the heathland flavours, and everything in between. So everything you harvest is sometimes it's monofloral, meaning it's from one specific species, and other times it's just a mix. So if you're planting a few flowers, you'll just be adding a tiny bit to the mix. In order to get that flavour in your honey, you'll actually have to plant many acres of flowers. A hive like this will visit flowers in, up to a 6-mile radius and bring all of that nectar and pollen back into the hive. So it's really a lot of flowers you need in order to change your honey harvest. And one of the great things about the flow hive is you get all these different colours and flavours. All of these jars came from these 2 boxes here. If you missed the time lapse on that, have a look in the link below. You get to see us running around like crazy, harvesting honey jars and building up this pyramid here.
It sure was crazy.
It was crazy, wasn't it? It was mad.
It was so good. So just Gabe's asking, what's in the bottom box? And it's funny, quite a few people ask this, like, why do you have 2 boxes? And what's the difference between the bottom box and the top box?
Okay, they're actually really quite different. Here you've got basically a conventional wooden box with conventional wooden frames. And in there is, we should have one to display, but it's just basically a wooden frame. If you look up beekeeping, it's something that's still sold today, and it's been used for hundreds of years. So in there, it's just a normal conventional Langstroth beekeeping box. Then what my father and I did is we invented these flow frames with the idea of, can't we just harvest honey in an easy way where the bees just go about their business and hardly disturbed, and we can just cut the honey off over the long labour intensive spreading hard work it used to be. And we actually achieved that. What's in here is very different. It's a partially formed honeycomb matrix that the bees then cover in wax and join the parts together. We come along like we did at the start of this harvest. We turn this key, then over about half an hour or so, the honey comes out of that frame. So very different what's in the 2 boxes. Down here, the bees are just building their comb as they've always done. Their queen is laying eggs. They're feeding bee bread to their young. They're making bee bread with the pollen and fermenting it in their cells. They're also storing honey down here as well, which is important for the hive to have enough honey because it uses 1 frame of honey, 1 frame of pollen to raise a frame of brood. So conventional, as it's always done, flow hive, top box, new invention that allows you to do this. That's the short answer.
Great. Christian's asking, Christian's got a couple of the hybrid hives. The flow frames are getting good. Would like to replace the super boxes. Christian, best way to do that is get in touch with customer support and they should be able to help you out with that one.
Give Trace a call.
Yeah, give me a call, Christian, I'll help you out. Perfect. Shabby Cat's asking, where are we on this wet day? We could be in New Zealand.
Yeah, we're in the rainy east coast of Australia. It's the most easterly point, and we've been getting a bit of rain, which is great because a few weeks back we actually were quite dry and we had fires, and we were literally getting out there and helping fight those fires. So it's nice to have the rain settle it all down and making everything grow. It'll set off the flowers, and that'll be great for the bees.
Nice. So and Maddox is asking, what are some of the things I can do to spot diseases in my hives?
Okay, so if you need a bit of help with that, we do have resources online, both written and in video form. We have them on YouTube and on Facebook, and also at thebeekeeper.org. If you really want to have a look, it's free to try, also a great fundraiser. We've put together an amazing course from experts from all over the world about how to do all things beekeeping, and it'll take you through how to look for things like AFB and EFB, which AFB is probably the nastiest thing. It's a spore-producing bacterium in the hive, and you're always on the lookout for that as a beekeeper. Hopefully you never see it, but if you see like sunken dark brood with piercings in it, then there's a few things you can do with a little matchstick to know whether you've got that AFB, which is American foul brood, And you're also on the lookout for levels of pests. If you've got a lot of hive beetles, then you want to activate your hive beetle trap down here. So we've got a tray in the bottom, which is for pest management, and you can put some cooking oil in there and collect those hive beetles. And then of course there's Varroa, which is a new topic for us here in Australia, but the screen bottom board is very helpful for that as well. And we'll be covering more topics on Varroa over the coming months as here in Australia we learn about those pesky little mites.
See, Rosalie's asking, having a bit of an issue when they go to lift off the roof, some of the look, sounds like the flow frames are kind of coming up with it as well, so maybe there's the inner cover as well going on. Just wondering if you've got any tips on how to sort of separate, I guess, the flow frames from that inner cover. They seem to be getting stuck to it.
Unlikely that the flow frames will get stuck to the inner cover. You're probably talking about the brood box. So if you've got your inner cover down at the brood box level because you haven't got this on, then you'll find when you get your hive tool and lever it off, if that is a very busy hive and there's a good flow on, you might find that they've put a whole lot of comb in between the inner cover and your brood frames down here. So you've just got to gently prise it around. They really get annoyed when the frames are lifting up. So what you do is you just try and crack it a little bit, use your hive tool to poke them back down, just one at a time like that. Lift your inner cover a little bit more and just lever the frames down. Eventually they'll come free and you can take that inner cover off. You might like to use a bit of smoke to clear the bees and clean off some of that wax so it's a bit easier to get off next time.
Nice.
Time for a couple more questions. What I might do is finish this harvest. It's only dripping. You could wait and get a bit more, but what you do to close it is you pull the key out again, all the way in like that, and then you're turning it to a 90, and what that does is move those parts back together, and beneath their feet now we have the flow frame parts in hexagons again. The bees will notice that these cells are empty. Notice it's gone light in colour now, and the bees are already starting to chew away there. And what they'll do is they will refix up the cells, coat all the parts in wax, start putting nectar in. The whole process starts again. It's a wonderful thing.
Right, this could be a good one. See, Kimberly's asking, doing a bit of research on beekeeping, and I guess wants to know what makes the flow hive, they're saying better, but maybe it's different than a traditional hive.
Okay, so the flow hive is very different from a conventional Langstroth hive or any other hive in the world because it's got the invention my father and I worked on for a decade and brought to the world in 2015, and it literally allows you to turn this handle like we just did. Oh, I dropped that in the honey. There we go, you can rest it there. Turn this handle like we just did and the honey drains straight out of that frame into your jars. So that's the difference. That's the main big difference, is your harvesting method is really different. At the turn of a handle you can be here with your family enjoying the process of harvesting the honey compared to the conventional way where you had to fire up your smoker, get in your bee suit, crack the lid open, take out all the frames, take those frames to a processing shed, cut the wax capping off each frame, put it into a big honey spinner, which is a bit like a washing machine in a way, and the honey then spins out to the edges. You collect the honey at the bottom, then you've got to go through a process of settling and sieving that honey in order to get to a product like this, where here you just turn a handle and literally that's it. You've got beautiful honey straight from your hive ready to sell at your roadside stall or keep on your shelf or give away to your friends. So that's the main difference. But into the flow hive, and this is our flow hive 2 Plus, which we don't normally put in the bundle actually. This year you'd get the flow hive, the top of the range one, in the bundle, and if you do want to have an excuse for getting started in beekeeping, now's the perfect time because there's a sale on that at the moment. But it has a lot of bells and whistles built in, including these adjustable legs, ant guards, pest management tray, more windows, harvesting shelves, and your brass details.
So how far away do bees forage for their nectar?
So bees fly extraordinarily far. They can fly just almost up to 40 kilometres an hour, which is incredibly fast considering they're so small and they've just got tiny little wings. And if they're hungry, they'll go 10 kilometres, 6 miles away, in order to get that nectar and bring it back to the hive. So incredible effort by these little bees. It almost defies physics that they're able to take almost their whole body weight of nectar and pollen and fly it all the way back to the hive on these tiny little wings, beating at 250 cycles a second.
Whoa, wow. A couple of people asking too about the bundle. Can they mix and match, change the suits out, different things like that? Just get in touch with the awesome customer support team, because they're all there on hand to answer any of those questions and help you out. So let you know that one. Might one day get Cedar on the phone. Cedar, how many bees are in that box?
So my guess on this hive right now, it could have more bees in there. But you're looking at probably 30 or 40,000 bees. A hive in full flight will have 50,000 bees. And if you do the maths on that, if half of those bees go out to forage, then that'd be 25,000 bees foraging. And if each one can visit a couple of thousand flowers, which is quite normal for bees, then you have 50 million flowers visited from a single hive like this, which is why they've become so important for pollination, and why they're tangled up now with our food chain, and why we need more beekeepers in the world. And you know, especially in Australia here, where we've had this big dip in actual areas that we can keep bees with the whole varroa mite management strategy, and then now, you know, 30,000 hives got destroyed to try and get rid of the mite. Didn't work, and now we need to build up again, really, to have enough pollination. So luckily bees do build up quickly. Beekeepers will be working very hard to split the hives, build up numbers, so we can get enough pollination to keep our food chain going. So if you're inspired, it's a great time to get into beekeeping. We need more beekeepers, and there's also a great special on.
Nice, and there's a really nice shout out to Callum, our fabulous camera person, saying everyone's loving your camera work today. Callum, you won't see him. Maybe one day we'll flick the camera around on him.
Got one more question.
Yeah, look, this is a good one to end on. How many jars are in the pyramid?
Well, should we do it like it's the jelly bean game?
That's what I was wondering. Yeah, take a guess and you win a jar of honey.
No, it's actually 85, which is a strange number. You wouldn't, you know, for my maths brain, I'm like, 85, that's a weird number. But the reason why it's a strange number is because we've got, it's hollow on the inside. So we've stacked the edges of the pyramid, and it's not until you get up to this layer that it's solid. So you've got this situation where we've taken honey jars out of the centre, if you like, or we've left the centre open. And we actually put a light in there so that we could turn it on and watch them glow at night time, which is cool. And the light, I'll turn it on now. If I can get this little spinner here can be stopped just by pressing the button. We love to get a bit inventive when we're playing around with honey harvesting. If you have a look through our videos, you see all sorts of interesting ones where we've done time lapses, and this was a time lapse of harvesting honey from these two hives and building this pyramid. And it's really just to show how much honey you get out of two hives and the variation. Look at the different colours. There's as many different flavours in there as there are colours as well. Now if I press this button, the spinner will stop. I've got a little mouse door here, and hopefully in here somewhere I've got a light, and there you go. Oh, look at that. It lights up. Nice. Look at those honey jars glowing there. Beautiful. So that was a fun and hectic little time lapse we did. If you missed that, have a look in the comments below. Thanks a lot for tuning in. If you've got more questions about the silly season sale we've got going at the moment, then chime in, ask our support. We've got people ready to answer your questions, and hopefully you get inspired to take the plunge and start in this beautiful pursuit we call beekeeping.